Here we are, guys. It's the last week of the season, and I have two players that have a chance to cause absolute chaos heading into the playoffs. First up, let's talk about Wesley. He smoked D-Croft yesterday 45-15 to take the #1 spot on the leaderboard heading into the final week of the season. But based on Wesley's 16-17 record so far this season, I do not think the crown is very safe in his hands, meaning we could be in for an insane week. Looking at his schedule, he only has a winning record against one of his 4 opponents this week. He's 0-2 against Dignity, 0-1 against Help Hicks, 1-1 against OG2K, and 1-0 against Milk 2 Wavy. And you know Wesley's opponents are going to be locked in this week for a shot at guaranteeing themselves a spot in the $1,000 playoffs after this week. I'm gonna make an assumption here because Dignity is 2-0 against Wes this season, but let's say Dignity takes down Wes on Thursday. Dignity then has 6 potential chances to defend or lose the crown after his game against Wes. And each of those 6 matches could lead to so many different leaderboard outcomes. 4 of Dignity's 7 matchups this week are against players that are not currently in the top 8, so I'm sure all of those guys are pulling hard for Dignity to upset Wes, so they have a chance for themselves to secure a playoff spot later in the week. And Dignity's been another one of those inconsistent performers this season, so in my head, he's not a guarantee to win any of his matches this week. In a scenario where Dignity does hold the top spot, guys like Sirius, Gabagool, Fancy, and Ken99 overall could all sneak into the playoffs with a win over Dignity this week. Also, you gotta think for every one of those 4 players that gets into the playoffs this week, that means 1 player has to get booted out. Anyone in those 6 to 10 range on the leaderboard are not safe at all this week. Guys like Bobby, Milk 2 Wavy, and Boogs are all praying that Wesley takes down Dignity on Thursday, so they're much less likely to get pushed out of playoff contention. I think by the end of the week, we'll look back and say Dignity versus Wes was the single most important game to this season's playoff story. Of course, Wesley could stop all of this chaos simply by winning, but based on the season so far, I think a perfect week from Wes is not very likely. But don't worry, we'll be checking in on the playoff picture this entire week leading up to the first ever 1v1 me Madden playoff, so buckle up because it's about to get bumpy.